The photograph that changed history, the discovery in the archive. Dr. Marcus Whitfield adjusted his reading glasses as he carefully turned another page in the dusty archive of the Royal Geographic Society. The London rain drummed against the tall windows of the Victorian building, creating a rhythmic backdrop to his research. As one of the world's leading experts in pre-Columbian civilizations, Marcus had spent the better part of 3 decades studying the mysteries of ancient Peru, but today felt different, as if the very air in the archive held secrets waiting to be unveiled. He was researching his upcoming book on early 20th century archaeological expeditions when his fingers paused on a particular folder marked Hiram Bingham Collection. Miss Bingham, the American explorer who had brought Machu Picchu to international attention, had been meticulous in documenting his journeys. Most of his photographs and notes had been extensively studied, but this folder seemed to contain overlooked materials. Marcus opened the folder with the reverence of someone who understood that history often revealed itself in the most unexpected moments. Inside, he found a collection of photographs, field notes, and correspondence. Most were familiar shots of Machu Picchu in its overgrown state, portraits of local guides, and documentation of artifacts. But then, tucked between 2 letters, he discovered a photograph that made his breath catch in his throat. The black and white image showed a section of ruins that Marcus didn't immediately recognize. The stonework was unmistakably Incan, those perfectly fitted megalithic blocks that had puzzled engineers for centuries. But there was something else, something that shouldn't have been there, according to everything he knew about Incan architecture and timeline. Marcus pulled out his magnifying glass and studied the photograph more closely. The image quality was remarkable for 1990s yet, suggesting Bingham had used one of his better cameras for this particular shot. In the foreground, partially obscured by vegetation, was a stone structure that appeared to be some kind of astronomical observatory. But carved in the stone, clearly visible even in the century-old photograph, were symbols that made Marcus's academic mind reel. These weren't typical Incan quipu knots or the geometric patterns commonly found in their architecture. These symbols appeared to be mathematical equations, complex mathematical equations, that if Marcus was reading them correctly, shouldn't have been known to any civilization in the Americas until the arrival of European scholars, and even then some of these formulas looked more advanced than anything from the early 60s. Marcus set down his magnifying glass and rubbed his eyes. He had to be mistaken. Perhaps the shadows in the photograph were playing tricks, or maybe these were natural formations in the stone that only appeared to be mathematical symbols. But as he looked again, the evidence was undeniable. There, carved in stone over 500 years ago, were mathematical concepts that predated their supposed discovery by centuries. On the back of the photograph, in Bingham's careful handwriting, was a note that sent chills down Marcus's spine. Anomalous spot, approximately 15 kilometers northeast of Machu Picchu. Local guides refused to approach, claimed the place was touched by the star people, photographed from maximum safe distance. Further investigation recommended. Marcus quickly searched through the rest of Bingham's notes, looking for any follow-up to this mysterious site. He found references to the location in Bingham's personal journal, but they were frustratingly brief. The explorer had apparently been so focused on Machu Picchu that he had filed this discovery away for future investigation. An investigation that, according to the historical record, never took place. Are you fascinated by ancient mysteries and archaeological discoveries? Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to never miss our latest explorations into history's greatest enigmas. The implications of what Marcus was seeing began to cascade through his mind like an avalanche. If these mathematical symbols were authentic, and the photograph certainly appeared to be, then everything the academic world believed about the development of advanced mathematics would need to be reconsidered. The symbols included what appeared to be early forms of calculus, advanced geometric proofs, and even what looked like astronomical calculations that wouldn't be developed in Europe until the time of Newton and Leibniz. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon photographing every page in the folder with his digital camera, paying special attention to the mysterious photograph and Bingham's notes. As the archive closed for the evening, he gathered his materials with hands that trembled slightly from excitement and trepidation. He knew that what he held in his possession could either make his career or destroy his reputation, depending on whether he could prove its authenticity. Walking through the London streets toward his hotel, Marcus's mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. He would need to organize an expedition to Peru, locate this mysterious site, and conduct a thorough archaeological investigation. But first, he would need funding, permits, and a team of experts who could help him verify what he was seeing. As he entered his hotel room, Marcus spread the photographs across his desk and opened his laptop. He began typing an email to his longtime colleague and friend, Dr. Sarah Chen, a specialist in ancient nativities at Cambridge University. If anyone could help him understand the implications of what he had discovered, it would be Sarah. The subject line of his email was simple, but loaded with significance. I need your expertise on something that might change everything we know about ancient civilizations. Marcus attached the photographs and began to write, knowing that by morning his quiet life as a respected but relatively unknown archaeologist might be forever changed. Outside his window, London continued its ancient rhythm, unaware that, in a small hotel room, a discovery was taking shape that would soon capture the attention of the entire world. Dr. Sarah Chen's coffee grew cold as she stared at her computer screen in her Cambridge office. She had been examining Marcus's photographs for 3 hours, cross-referencing the stone carvings with every mathematical text she could access. What she was seeing defied everything she understood about the historical development of mathematics. This is impossible, she whispered to herself, adjusting her computer screen to get a better view of the symbols. She had initially assumed that Marcus had misinterpreted natural stone formations or perhaps later additions to the ruins. But the more she studied the images, the more convinced she became that these were indeed intentional mathematical inscriptions, and they were revolutionary. Sarah picked up her phone and dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the first ring, clearly having been waiting for her call. Sarah, please tell me you see what I think I'm seeing, Marcus said without preamble. Marcus, where exactly did you say this photograph came from? Sarah's voice was carefully controlled, the tone of a scientist trying to maintain objectivity in the face of the extraordinary. Iram Bingham's personal collection. Dated in, I verified the paper, the photographic techniques, even the handwriting. It's authentic, Sarah. The question is, what exactly are we looking at? Sarah pulled up the images on her larger monitor and began pointing out specific symbols, even though Marcus couldn't see her gestures. Marcus, what you found here appears to be a complete mathematical proof for what we now call the Pythagorean theorem, but it's expressed in a notation system I've never seen. More importantly, there are calculations here that suggest an understanding of advanced geometric principles that weren't formally developed in Europe until the Renaissance. She paused, scrolling to another section of the photograph. But that's not the most shocking part. Look at this section here. These symbols appear to represent astronomical calculations. If I'm reading this correctly, they've calculated the orbital period of Jupiter with an accuracy that wasn't achieved by European astronomers until the 16th century. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, I need you to come to Peru with me. I'm organizing an expedition to find this site. Marcus, you realize what you're suggesting? If these calculations are authentic and date to pre-Columbian times, we're not just talking about advanced mathematical knowledge. We're talking about a level of astronomical observation and mathematical sophistication that rivals anything achieved in the ancient world, including Greece, Egypt, or Babylon. I know exactly what I'm suggesting, Marcus replied, and that's why I need the best mathematical mind I know to help me prove it. Sarah saved the images to her secure drive and began making notes. I'll need to bring some equipment, spectrographic analysis tools, dating equipment, and a few colleagues who specialize in archaeoastronomy. If we're going to make claims this extraordinary, we need extraordinary evidence. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcos assembled his team. In addition to Sarah, he recruited Dr. James Rodriguez, a specialist in Incan history from the University of Madrid, and Dr. Elena Vázquez, a Peruvian archaeologist who had extensive experience with high-altitude excavations. He also secured the services of Miguel Santos, a local guide whose family had lived in the Sacred Valley for generations. The funding came from an unexpected source. When Marcos presented his preliminary findings to the National Geographic Society, the response was immediate and enthusiastic. The society had been looking for a project that could capture public imagination while advancing legitimate scientific knowledge. Marcos's discovery seemed to offer both. As the team prepared for departure, Sarah continued her analysis of the mathematical symbols. She had consulted with colleagues at Oxford, MIT, and the Sorbonne, sharing only portions of the images and describing them as theoretical ancient mathematical notations for a paper she was writing. The responses were unanimous. If such mathematical knowledge had existed in pre-Columbian America, it would represent one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the modern era. What do you think about this incredible discovery? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know what ancient mystery you'd like us to explore next. The night before their departure, Marcos sat in his study, surrounded by maps of the Cusco region and satellite images of the area where Bingham had taken his mysterious photograph. Using modern GPS coordinates and topographic analysis, the team had narrowed down the possible location of the site to a remote area in the Andes, accessible only by a challenging 3-day trek through high-altitude terrain. Sarah called him one final time before their departure. Marcos, I've been thinking about the implications of what we might find. If this site contains the level of mathematical and astronomical knowledge that the photograph suggests, we need to be prepared for the possibility that our understanding of human intellectual development might be fundamentally flawed. What do you mean? Marcos asked, though he suspected he knew where she was heading. I mean that either the Incas had access to mathematical knowledge that was far more advanced than we've ever given them credit for, or, she paused, clearly struggling with the implications of her own thoughts. Or what, Sarah? Or they had contact with a civilization that possessed this knowledge, a civilization that we have no historical record of. Marcos stared out his window at the London skyline, thinking about the journey that lay ahead. In less than 24 hours, he would be on a plane to Peru, chasing a mystery that had been hidden in an archive for over a century. The photograph that had started this journey sat on his desk, its black and white surface holding secrets that might rewrite history. As he prepared for bed, Marcos couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to embark on more than just an archaeological expedition. He was about to step into a mystery that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the ancient world, and perhaps about the nature of human civilization itself. The last thing he did before turning off the lights was to look once more at Bingham's note on the back of the photograph. Local guides refused to approach, claimed the place was touched by the star people. For the first time, Marcos wondered if the local guides might have known something that modern science was only beginning to discover. The helicopter's rotors beat a steady rhythm as it carried Marcos and his team over the Sacred Valley of Peru. Below them, the Andes stretched endlessly, their peaks shrouded in morning mist that seemed to hold the secrets of millennia. Miguel Santos, their local guide, pointed toward a distant ridge barely visible through the clouds. There he shouted over the noise of the helicopter. There's where the old stories say the star people left their marks. Dr. Elena Vázquez, the Peruvian archaeologist, leaned forward with interest. Miguel, you've mentioned these stories before. Can you tell us more about what your people believe about this place? Miguel's weathered face grew serious. My grandmother's grandmother told stories passed down for many generations. She said that long ago, before the Inca became great, visitors came from the sky. They taught our ancestors about the movements of the stars and the secrets of numbers, but they warned that their knowledge was dangerous, and they hid it in a place where only the worthy could find it. Sarah exchanged glances with Marcus. The mathematical symbols in Bingham's photograph were beginning to make a different kind of sense, not as evidence of indigenous mathematical development, but as something far more extraordinary. The helicopter set them down at a base camp approximately 10 kilometers from their target location. The altitude was already affecting the team. At nearly 4 meters above sea level, every breath required conscious effort. They would need to acclimatize for a full day before attempting the final approach to the site. As they set up camp, James Rodriguez pulled out his historical texts and began cross-referencing Miguel's stories with known Incan oral traditions. "You know," he said to Marcus as they worked, "there are similar stories throughout the Andes. References to teachers from the sky who brought knowledge of astronomy and mathematics. Most scholars have dismissed these as mythological, but maybe we've been too quick to dismiss them," Marcus finished. He looked up at the clear Indian sky, where stars were already becoming visible despite the early hour. At this altitude, with no light pollution, the night sky revealed itself in all its ancient glory, the same sky that had guided civilizations for thousands of years. That evening, as the team gathered around their camp stove for dinner, Sarah shared her latest analysis of the mathematical symbols. "I've been working with the assumption that these symbols represent advanced mathematical concepts," she said, pulling out her tablet to show enhanced images of the stone carvings. "But I'm starting to think they might be something even more sophisticated." She pointed to a series of symbols that appear multiple times throughout the photograph. These recurring patterns, they're not just mathematical equations, they appear to be some kind of coordinate system. If I'm reading this correctly, they're astronomical coordinates, but they're more precise than anything we know from the ancient world. Elena leaned in to study the images. "Coordinate system for what?" "That's what we need to find out," Sarah replied. "But if these coordinates are accurate, they might be pointing to specific celestial events or locations. The precision suggests whoever created these had access to observational tools and mathematical knowledge that rivals our modern capabilities." Miguel, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "The stories say that the Star People left a map that would guide their return." The team fell silent, each member grappling with the implications of what they were discussing. Marcus broke the silence. "Tomorrow, we find out what's really up there." The next morning, they began their ascent toward the coordinates Marcus had calculated from Bingham's photograph. The terrain was challenging, steep, rocky paths that wound through cloud forest and alpine meadows. Miguel led them along ancient trails that seemed to know exactly where they were going, even when the GPS coordinate suggested they should be heading in a different direction. "The old paths know the way," Miguel explained when Marcus questioned their route. "They were made by people who understood this land." After 6 hours of climbing, they crested a ridge and found themselves looking down into a hidden valley that didn't appear on any modern map. The valley was perfectly circular, surrounded by towering peaks that created a natural amphitheater. And there in the center of the valley were the ruins. This discovery is about to get even more incredible. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss the shocking revelation that's coming next. Marcus pulled out his binoculars and studied the site below. The ruins were more extensive than Bingham's photograph had suggested. A complex of stone structures arranged in precise geometric patterns. But what made his hands tremble as he adjusted the focus was the realization that the entire complex was laid out in the shape of a massive astronomical diagram. "My God," Sarah whispered beside him, looking through her own binoculars. "It's not just a ruin, it's a three-dimensional representation of the mathematical equations from the photograph." Elena was taking GPS readings and comparing them to topographical maps. "This valley isn't on any official survey," It's as if it's been deliberately hidden. As they descended into the valley, the scale of the discovery became apparent. The stone structures weren't just buildings, they were components of an enormous calculating device, a physical computer designed to track celestial movements with incredible precision. The mathematical symbols from Bingham's photograph were carved into stone tablets that were positioned throughout the complex, each one corresponding to a specific astronomical function. Miguel stopped at the entrance to the main structure and turned to the team. "This is as far as my people go," he said quietly. "From here, you must decide if you are ready for what the star people left behind." Marcus looked at his team, Sarah with her mathematical expertise, Elena with her archaeological knowledge, James with his understanding of Incan culture, and Miguel with his connection to the ancient stories. They had come this far, following a century-old photograph, but now they stood at the threshold of something that could change human understanding of its own history. "Are we ready?" he asked. Sarah nodded, her scientific curiosity overcoming any apprehension. "We've come too far to turn back now." Elena checked her equipment one final time. "Whatever we find in there, we document everything. The world needs to see this." James looked up at the stone carvings that surrounded the entrance. "If the stories are true, we're about to discover something that was meant to be found. The question is, are we the ones who were meant to find it?" As they approached the main structure, Marcus noticed that the stonework was unlike anything he had seen in decades of studying Incan architecture. The blocks were fitted together with impossible precision, and the mathematical symbols carved into them seemed to glow in the afternoon light, though he knew that had to be a trick of the shadows. The entrance to the main chamber was sealed with a stone that bore a single symbol, a complex mathematical equation that Sarah immediately recognized. "Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "that's the equation for calculating the precession of the equinoxes. But it's expressed in a mathematical notation that's more elegant than anything in our modern textbooks." Marcus placed his hand on the stone, feeling the precision of the ancient carving beneath his fingers. Whatever lay beyond this entrance had been waiting for over 500 years to be discovered. As he prepared to move the stone aside, he couldn't help but wonder, were they about to uncover the greatest archaeological discovery in human history? Or were they about to learn that human history itself was far more complex than anyone had ever imagined? The stone seal moved aside with surprising ease, as if it had been designed to be opened by those who understood its mathematical significance. As Marcus's flashlight beam penetrated the darkness beyond, the team found themselves looking into a chamber that defied every expectation they had formed during their journey. The walls of the circular chamber were covered floor to ceiling with mathematical equations, astronomical charts, and symbols that seemed to pulse with an inner light, though Marcus knew that had to be an optical illusion created by the mineral content of the stone. But what dominated the center of the chamber was a structure that made Sarah gasp audibly. "It's an astrolabe," she whispered, stepping forward to examine the intricate bronze and stone device. "But it's unlike any astrolabe I've ever seen. Look at the complexity of the calculations built into its design." The device stood nearly 2 meters tall, composed of interlocking rings and discs covered with the same mathematical notation they had seen in Bingham's photograph. But this was no static carving. The astrolabe was clearly designed to move, to calculate, to predict celestial events with a precision that shouldn't have been possible with pre-Columbian technology. Elena began photographing the wall carvings while James documented the chamber's layout. "Marcus," Elena called, "you need to see this. These aren't just random mathematical equations. They're organized into sections, like chapters in a textbook." Marcus joined her at the far wall, where the carvings were arranged in distinct groupings. "This section appears to be basic arithmetic and geometry," Elena continued, "but look how it progresses. Here's advanced algebra, then calculus, then mathematical concepts I don't even recognize." Sarah had moved to the astrolabe and was studying its construction with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle that had been waiting centuries for a solution. Marcus, this device isn't just for astronomical lorries. It's a computer, a mechanical computer designed to perform complex calculations. And if I'm reading these inscriptions correctly, it's calibrated to track celestial events across thousands of years. James looked up from his documentation. The implications of what we're seeing here, if it is, knowledge existed in pre-Columbian America. Why isn't there any other evidence of it? Why didn't this mathematical sophistication spread throughout the Incan Empire? Miguel, who had remained near the entrance, spoke quietly. Because it was not meant for the empire. The stories say it was meant for a time when the sky people would return. It was meant for now. The team worked in careful silence for the next several hours, documenting every symbol, every equation, every detail of the astrolabe's construction. As they worked, a pattern began to emerge that was more extraordinary than anything they had initially imagined. These aren't just mathematical equations, Sarah announced, her voice filled with excitement and trepidation. Their instruction. This entire chamber is a manual for advanced astronomical calculation and prediction. She pointed to a series of symbols near the astrolabe. Look at this sequence. It's showing how to calculate the exact position of planetary bodies, not just for the past, but for the future. And the precision is incredible. These calculations are accurate to within minutes of arc. Marcus toyed the symbol Sierra was indicating, but Sierra, that level of precision, would require observational data collected over centuries, maybe millennia. How could a pre-Columbian civilization have accumulated that much astronomical data? Elena looked up from her photography. Maybe they didn't accumulate it. Maybe they inherited it. The implications of Elena's statement hung in the air like the thin atmosphere of the high Andes. Jamie set down his notebook and walked to the center of the chamber, looking up at the domed ceiling, which they now realized was covered with a detailed star map. This star map, Jamie said slowly, it's not showing the sky as it appeared here. According to these calculations, it's showing the sky as it will appear in our time, in the 24th century. Sarah moved to the astrolabe and began examining its movable components more closely. James is right. This device has been calibrated to predict astronomical events for our era. What that means, she paused, the full implication of her discovery hitting her. That means whoever built this knew we would be here, Marcus finished. They knew that in the early 21st century, someone would find Bingham's photograph and follow it to this location. Miguel nodded gravely. The stories say the star people left their knowledge for the time when the sky would change, when the old ways would be forgotten and new ways would be needed. They say this time is now. Elena had moved to another section of the wall and was studying a series of symbols that appeared different from the mathematical equations. Marcus, I think I found something else. These symbols aren't mathematical, they're linguistic. It looks like some kind of written language, but it's unlike any pre-Columbian script I've ever seen. Marcus joined her, and together they studied the linguistic symbols. Unlike the mathematical equations, which had been carved with precision into the stone, these symbols appeared to have been painted onto the wall with a substance that had somehow remained vibrant despite the passage of centuries. Can you translate any of it? Marcus asked. Elena shook her head. It's completely unlike any known American indigenous language, but the structure suggests it's highly sophisticated, possibly more complex than any written language from the ancient Americas. Sarah called from the astrolabe. I think I've figured out how to operate this device. The rings are designed to rotate, and when they're aligned according to these mathematical instructions, they should show the position of celestial bodies for any given date. She carefully began adjusting the bronze rings according to the carved instructions. As the components moved into alignment, something extraordinary happened. The mathematical symbols throughout the chamber began to glow with a soft, phosphorescent light. That's impossible, Elena whispered. There's no power source, no electrical system. How are those symbols lighting up? Miguel stepped forward, his expression a mixture of awe and enduring understanding. The Star People's knowledge was not just written in stone, it was written in the stone itself. As the astrolabe reached its calculated position, the phosphorescent glow intensified, and new symbols appeared on the walls, symbols that hadn't been visible in normal light. These new symbols were arranged around what appeared to be a detailed map, but not a map of Earth. "It's a star map," Sarah said, her voice barely audible, "but it's showing star systems that are too distant to be visible to the naked eye. This level of astronomical knowledge would require telescopic observation, but telescopes weren't invented until long after this chamber was sealed," Marcus finished. James had been studying the newly revealed symbols and turned to the team with an expression of profound bewilderment. "I think we need to consider the possibility that what we've discovered here isn't just advanced pre-Columbian knowledge. I think we've discovered evidence of contact with a civilization that possessed technological capabilities far beyond anything we've attributed to the ancient world." Elena lowered her camera and looked around the chamber with new eyes. "You're suggesting that the Star People in Miguel's stories weren't mythological. You're suggesting they were real." "I'm suggesting," the Sims replied carefully, "that we've found evidence of knowledge that couldn't have been developed independently by any Earth-based civilization of the time period. The question is, where did this knowledge come from?" As if in response to his question, the astrolabe completed its alignment, and the chamber filled with a soft, harmonious tone, a sound that seemed to emanate from the stone itself. On the far wall, a section of symbols began to glow more brightly than the rest, forming what appeared to be a message. Sarah approached the glowing symbols and began to study their arrangement. "It's mathematical," she said, "but it's also something more. It's like a signature, or a calling card." Marcus joined her, and together they studied the glowing message. As they watched, the symbols seemed to rearrange themselves, forming new patterns, new equations, new meanings. "It's responding to our presence," Marcus said, his voice filled with wonder and apprehension. "This chamber isn't just a repository of ancient knowledge, it's interactive. It's been waiting for us." Elena continued photographing the glowing symbols, but her hands were shaking. "Marcus, we need to consider the implications of what we're documenting here. If this knowledge is authentic, if it really represents contact with an advanced civilization, then we're not just making an archaeological discovery, we're making first contact." The chamber fell silent except for the soft harmonic tone that continued to emanate from the wall. The team stood, surrounded by impossible knowledge, each member grappling with the realization that their expedition had uncovered something far more significant than they had ever imagined. As the phosphorescent glow continued to pulse gently throughout the chamber, Marcus realized that they had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return. Whatever they had discovered in this hidden valley would change not just their understanding of ancient civilizations, but their understanding of humanity's place in the universe itself. The harmonic tone that filled the chamber gradually shifted, becoming more complex, more musical. Sarah realized with growing amazement that the sound was following mathematical patterns, frequencies that corresponded to the golden ratio, to P, to other fundamental mathematical constants that formed the building blocks of the universe itself. "It's not just making sound," she told the team, her voice filled with scientific wonder. "It's speaking in the language of mathematics, pure mathematical communication." Elena had been documenting the glowing symbols when she noticed something that made her call the others over urgently. "The linguistic symbols I found earlier, they're changing. The painted symbols are rearranging themselves into new patterns." The team gathered around the wall where Elena had first discovered the non-mathematical symbols. As they watched, the painted characters seemed to flow like liquid, reforming into new configurations. But more remarkably, as the symbols changed, their meaning became increasingly clear. "It's adapting," James said in amazement. "The language is adapting to our understanding. It's becoming more familiar, more recognizable." "Marcus," studied the evolving text, and felt his breath catch. It's not just adapting to our understanding, it's adapting to our languages. Look, some of these symbols are starting to resemble Latin characters. Others look like mathematical notation we use today. Sarah moved back to the astrolabe, which continued to emit its harmatic tones. The device is scanning us somehow. It's analyzing our knowledge, our languages, our mathematical understanding, and it's adjusting its communication accordingly. Miguel, who had remained near the entrance throughout their exploration, stepped forward with a grave expression. The stories say that when the Star People's message finally spoke in the tongue of those who found it, it would mean that the time of return was near. Safe responding to Miguel's words, the symbols on the walls stabilized into a form that was clearly readable, though written in a script that seemed to combine elements from multiple human languages and mathematical notations. Elena began reading aloud, her voice trembling with the magnitude of what she was discovering. To those who follow the path of numbers and stars, greetings across the vast ocean of time. We are the Watchers, the guardians of knowledge, those whom your stories call the Star People. We came to your world when your species was young, not as conquerors but as teachers and protectors. She paused, looking at the team with wide eyes before continuing. We shared with your ancestors the fundamental truths of mathematics and astronomy, the keys to understanding the universe itself. But we knew that this knowledge was dangerous in the hands of those not ready to use it wisely. So we hid it, sealed it away, until your species had grown in wisdom and understanding. Marcos felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him as Helena continued reading. This chamber is our gift to you, but also our test. If you have found this place, if you can read these words, then your species has reached the threshold of cosmic awareness. You stand at the edge of a great transformation, a time when you will take your place among the civilizations of the stars. Sarah had been making calculations on her tablet while Elena read. Marcus, she interrupted. The astronomical alignments in this chamber, they're not just showing current star positions, they're showing a specific date in the near future. According to these calculations, there's going to be a rare planetary alignment in approximately 6 months that occurs only once every 26 million years. Elena continued reading from the wall. When the wandering stars align as they did when we first came to your world, we will return. But this time, we come not as teachers to a young species, but as equals greeting a civilization ready to join the greater community of intelligent life. James had been studying the star map that had appeared when the astrolabe activated. This isn't just showing our solar system, he said, his voice filled with awe. It's showing multiple star systems, with travel routes marked between them. It's a galactic map. The implications of what they were discovering began to cascade through Marcus's mind. This wasn't just an archaeological find. It was evidence that humanity had been in contact with an advanced extraterrestrial civilization thousands of years ago, and that contact was about to be renewed. Elena's voice grew stronger as she continued reading the message. The knowledge we left in this chamber is yours to use, but use it wisely. The mathematical principles carved in these walls will advance your understanding of physics and astronomy by centuries. The star maps will show you the paths between worlds. But remember, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. Sarah looked up from her calculations. The mathematical equations in this chamber, if they're accurate, they represent a complete unified theory of physics. They show relationships between gravity, electromagnetism, and nuclear forces that our best scientists are still trying to understand. The message on the wall continued. Your species stands at a crossroads, and use this knowledge to transcend the limitations of your world and join the community of star-traveling civilizations, or you can use it to destroy yourselves. The choice, as it has always been, is yours. Miguel stepped forward, his weathered face reflecting the phosphorescent glow of the symbols. The stories say that when the Star People return, They will judge whether humanity is ready to receive their full knowledge. This chamber is the first test. Elena read the final portion of the message. We have watched your progress from afar, seen your struggles and your triumphs. You have shown both great wisdom and great folly. In 6 months, when the stars align, we will return to see what you have become. Prepare your world, for the age of isolation is ending. The age of cosmic citizenship begins. The chamber fell silent as the message concluded. The harmonic tones gradually faded, but the phosphorescent glow remained, casting an otherworldly light on the team's faces as they grappled with the magnitude of their discovery. Marcus looked around at his colleagues, Sarah, with her mathematical genius, Elena with her archaeological expertise, James with his historical knowledge, and Miguel with his connection to the ancient stories. They had come to Peru following a century-old photograph, but they had discovered something that would change the course of human history. We have 6 months, Marcus said quietly. 6 months to prepare the world for the return of the Watcher. Elena was still photographing the message, her hands now steady with purpose. The question is, how do we prepare humanity for something like this? How do we tell the world that we're about to make contact with an extraterrestrial civilization? Sarah had returned to studying the mathematical equations. First, we verify everything. We test these mathematical principles, confirm the astronomical predictions, and build a case that's so solid that even the most skeptical scientists will have to accept it. James nodded. And now we need to understand the historical context. If the Watchers have been in contact with human civilizations before, there might be other evidence, other sites, other clues that we've overlooked. Miguel looked up at the star map that covered the chamber ceiling. The stories say that when the star people return, they will first contact those who found their message. We are to be the bridge between their knowledge and our world. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They had discovered not just an archaeological site, but humanity's invitation to join a galactic community. The photograph that had started their journey had led them to the threshold of a new age for human civilization. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Marcus took one last look at the glowing symbols that surrounded them. In 6 months, if the message was true, humanity would no longer be alone in the universe. The question was, would they be ready for what was coming? The journey back to civilization felt like traveling between 2 different realities. Behind them lay the chamber with its impossible knowledge and cosmic message. Ahead lay a world that had no idea it was about to be fundamentally changed. Marcus and his team carried with them thousands of photographs, detailed measurements, and video documentation of their discovery, but they also carried the weight of a secret that could transform human understanding of its place in the universe. During the helicopter flight back to Cusco, the team sat in contemplative silence. Each member was processing not just what they had discovered, but what they were now responsible for doing with that discovery. The phosphorescent glow of the chamber symbols seemed to linger in their memories, a constant reminder that they had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return. Upon reaching Cusco, Marcus immediately contacted Richard Hawthorne, the director of the International Archaeological Institute, and arranged for an emergency video conference. Within hours, they had assembled a virtual meeting that included some of the world's leading experts in archaeology, astronomy, mathematics, and linguistics. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. What I'm about to show you will challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations in humanity's history. For the next 3 hours, Marcus and his team presented their findings. They showed Bingham's original photograph, documented their journey to the Hidden Valley, and revealed the mathematical and astronomical knowledge contained within the chamber. But it was when they showed the video of the glowing message that the assembled experts fell into stunned silence. Dr. Hawthorne was the first to speak. Marcus, you understand what you're claiming. You're suggesting that this chamber contains evidence of extraterrestrial contact with ancient human civilizations. I'm not suggesting it, Richard, Marcus replied. I'm documenting it. The mathematical knowledge in that chamber is centuries ahead of anything that should have existed in pre-Columbian America. The astronomical calculations are more precise than anything we achieved until the space age. And the message speaks for itself. Sarah presented her analysis of the mathematical equations. I've spent the past week verifying these calculations with colleagues at Cambridge, MIT, and the Max Planck Institute. The mathematical principles carved in that chamber represent a unified theory of physics that our best scientists are still trying to develop. This isn't just advanced knowledge, it's knowledge that appears to come from a civilization with a fundamentally different understanding of the universe. Dr. Elena Martínez, a linguist from the University of Barcelona, who had joined the conference, studied the images of the adaptive text. The linguistic evidence is equally compelling. The script's ability to adapt and translate itself suggests a level of technological sophistication that we can barely comprehend, let alone replicate. James presented the historical context. I've been researching similar stories from cultures around the world, the Sumerian Anunnaki, the Hindu Vimanas, the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of sky beings. When viewed in light of what we've discovered, these aren't just mythologies, they're historical accounts of the same phenomenon. The conference continued for days as experts from around the world examined the evidence. Astronomers confirmed the accuracy of the celestial predictions. Physicists were astounded by the mathematical principles. Archaeologists struggled to reconcile the discovery with everything they thought they knew about ancient civilizations. But it was Yuki Tanaka, a leading expert in astrobiology from Tokyo University, who raised the most important question: if this message is authentic, and if the Watchers are indeed returning in 6 months, what are we going to do about it? Marcus had been dreading this question, but he knew it was inevitable. We have to tell the world. Humanity has a right to know that we're about to make contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. Dr. Hawthorne leaned back in his chair. Marcus, do you understand the implications of what you're suggesting? If we announce this discovery, it will cause global panic. Religious institutions will be thrown into chaos. Governments will demand access to the site. The scientific community will be divided between those who accept the evidence and those who refuse to believe it. And if we don't announce it, Elena interjected, and the Watchers do return as the message indicates, humanity will be completely unprepared. We'll have missed our opportunity to use the knowledge in that chamber to advance our civilization before first contact occurs. Sarah had been running calculations on her laptop. The planetary alignment mentioned in the message have confirmed the date. It will occur in exactly. If the Watchers are returning, we have less than 6 months to prepare. Miguel, who had remained quiet during most of the conference, finally spoke. The stories of my people say that when the Star People return, they will judge whether humanity is ready to receive their knowledge. If we hide this discovery, if we keep it secret, we will fail that test before it even begins. Over the following weeks, the team worked to prepare their findings for public release. They knew that the announcement would be met with skepticism, ridicule, and controversy, but they also knew that the evidence was too compelling to ignore. Marcus decided to make the announcement at the International Conference on Archaeological Discoveries in Geneva. The venue would provide a respected platform for their revelation, and the assembled audience of scientists, journalists, and government representatives would ensure that the message reached the right people. The night before the conference, Marcus stood on his hotel balcony, looking up at the stars. In less than 6 months, if the message in the chamber was true, humanity would no longer be alone in the universe. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. Sarah joined him on the balcony. Are you ready for tomorrow? Marcus nodded. I've been thinking about Bingham's photograph, how it sat in that archive for over a century, waiting for someone to notice it. Maybe this whole discovery was meant to happen now, at this moment in human history. The message did say that the chamber was designed to be found when humanity was ready for cosmic citizenship, Sarah replied. Maybe we're more ready than we think. Elena and James joined them, and the 4 team members stood together under the star-filled sky, each contemplating the magnitude of what they were about to reveal to the world. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Marcus said, "we've done our job as scientists. We've followed the evidence wherever it led, and we've documented our findings with complete integrity. History will judge whether we made the right choice." The next morning, Marcus stepped up to the podium at the Geneva Conference Center. The auditorium was packed with scientists, journalists, and government officials from around the world. As he began his presentation, Marcus knew that he was about to deliver the most important speech in human history. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I am here to announce a discovery that will change our understanding of human civilization and our place in the universe. We have found evidence that humanity has been in contact with an advanced extraterrestrial civilization, and that contact is about to be renewed." As Marcus began to present the evidence from the chamber, he could see the audience's reaction get from skepticism to amazement to profound concern. By the time he revealed the message from the watchers and the predicted date of their return, the auditorium was completely silent. "We have cientos de days," Marcus concluded, "to prepare humanity for the most significant event in our species' history. The age of cosmic isolation is ending. The question is, are we ready to take our place among the civilizations of the stars?" As Marcus finished his presentation, he knew that the world would never be the same. The photograph that had started their journey had led them to a discovery that would define humanity's future. In less than 6 months, they would learn whether humanity was ready for the next chapter in its cosmic story. The chamber in the hidden valley continued to glow with its phosphorescent light, its message now shared with the world, its countdown to contact marking the days until humanity would meet its cosmic destiny.